Good morning, everyone. We'll get started with a call to order and a pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As far as the minutes were concerned, were there any corrections to those? No. Okay. Is there a motion to approve those?
Motion.
Okay, is there a second? All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Okay. The committee of two reviewed application paperwork to finish up the application for 778 SAG Main Street, SAG LLC, regarding a color of a steel beam that was going to be on the back of the house. And so that's been approved. And that is the extent of the report for the committee of two. We are back going to pick up old business with Halcon Gates. Is someone here for that? 626? 629. So let's adjourn that for the moment, since there's no one here to walk us through on that. And is there a motion to adjourn that?
Which one are we adjourning? I'm sorry.
A. Number 3A. No one's here to present that.
Yeah, I can hear better now.
And
No, I don't.
Email about 3 months.
Okay. The applicant's
is he?
representative is just walking in. So,
Okay.
hello.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Ramon, come. You're on.
So,
Introduce yourself, please.
the site map again, please.
Hello, my name is Ramon.
Yes.
Chavez, I'm representing the owner on 629 Cages Lane in Salafona. And this is regarding to asking for a driveway permit. I would like to see you have any question now.
Yes, we received your the letter from Ephraim. One of our board members did go down and visit the site, and can we zoom into that site map for a second?
I went down to the end of the road too.
Okay. It appears that there's really no turnaround space if the gate goes there, which was a little bit seemed perplexing to some of us. So can we get in a little bit closer there? So the idea of, we understand the idea of having a gate, but having a gate seems to severely complicate the idea of anyone being able to turn around and get out of there. So, John, is this on a single shared driveway with an easement that they would each have their own flag and they're sharing a drive? Is that?
Yes.
Okay. Is there any steps that you might recommend to rectify this lack of space at the split?
I mean, all of the others, flag strips and such like that are heavily landscaped. It's not technically the Ephraim's property, so you have to get their neighbors to voluntarily remove their landscaping to create a turnaround area. I mean, otherwise one would have to be created on the Ephraim's.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, can I say something? You talking about the neighbors, they put a mesh gate, big gate. It's nothing compared what about we asking for, or what about you already approved or something. Is I don't know why that gate is there. Maybe must be not a gate there. The gate is completely out
Is this a gate for another house on the road? Is this a gate for a house on the road, on the driveway?
Yes, on the
Right.
right-hand side.
Right.
It's a mess, a big gate, completely.
Is that-
closed
it's
off.
pretty-
I don't know, I would need to know the address and I can look it up to see if it's a permit we issued or if it was there, you know, prior to the village.
Yeah, because the place where we are asking for the gate is into the property, you're not can see from the road, you're not going to see from the road.
Right, it still doesn't,
You know,
it's still a confusing and potentially hazardous situation. Which requires some solution on
I'm
everyone's part, I
Yeah.
think.
sorry, interrupt you. I understand your point in part, I was by myself, I drive in the park, I assume what the gate is going to be, and I turn with my car going towards the other gate, and I completely turn it, but
Interesting.
Mhm.
I went down the end of that road too yesterday. There are already gates on that road. I don't know when they were.
Just
approved,
one.
But it was hard for me to turn around when I got to the end. Very hard.
yeah, it's a little hard, you have to know this car, but it's a way to do it.
And what's the reason for the gate?
To keep the cars they going into all the time and the dogs.
Keep the cars from
The car there, you know, Uber go a lot.
So they go
And
into
they
the
go
driveway.
in, and the property goes to the lab.
Into the wrong driveway.
And also, they concern about the dogs getting running out.
I mean, these are all concerns that I have as a homeowner as well. I have a short driveway, and so, but I don't have gates. I have an invisible fence for my dog, and if the Uber needs to turn around, they have to turn around. A little bit, everybody has that problem, so.
My video is not working. This is Tony Woods. And would the same purpose be served if both neighbors shared one gate, maybe further up on the joined road? And then essentially if someone stole your car, you know it's your neighbor, if that's a concern. But that might at least eliminate it from being any of the public getting there. I guess the one problem is it doesn't support the turning around part.
Right.
It's also a narrow road. It's an
Yeah,
old subdivision road.
Mhm.
I think it's particularly of concern in light of issues we've had with driving around this area, and limited sight of view and everything. But yeah, I just think given the reliance on Fresh Direct, UPS, and Amazon, it's it's something that would make your client's life easier too. He just might not be looking into it that way.
And would the gate be pretty much right at the foot of the driveway, or would the gate be going? Oh, it is? I didn't see
Yeah,
that.
it's a little bit inside, it's inside.
So the gate would go, right, and that's very, they want theirs to be just as close too, so that they're right.
He's saying that you can turn around, we had a hard time, it's like all.
Right, I did it yesterday and it wasn't easy, but I mean, if the fence, the gate is further onto their property, would that work? Instead of, so you at least have some room to.
I'm sorry?
We can try to push a little more into the property.
I think that these are issues, the Uber and the dog are issues that everybody has. And I don't really see that it's an emergency need for a gate, frankly. I would
I would
know.
agree. I would agree.
Yeah, the other thing about the cars is, I think that point is important. I saw people losing cars now in this time.
Yep.
All around here.
Yep.
The people want to call me, they want to change the code because they lose a car.
But you're already on a flag lot. You know, it would be a lot easier to steal somebody's car who's closer to the street.
Yes,
That's what I want.
one house had
We all,
6
again,
cars.
another problem we all have, right? I don't leave my keys in the car anymore. For that reason.
I would argue that the proposed gates biggest sort of value would be keeping the truck visiting your neighbor from using your driveway to turn around, which almost elucidates the problem. But you would have people basically backing, any truck backing down that, unable to turn into the neighbor halfway through. It would essentially be a de facto turning point or cul-de-sac.
Yeah, we can, I can talk to them and see, they can ask the neighbor to modify that area and looking for a space so they can do it. I can do that. Also, one thing I think the town need to see it is how that gate is there, because it's not like the law, but
Sharing that.
Okay, I'm gonna suggest that we pursue both trying to communicate with the neighbor, because I don't see that this solves a situation for everyone there. Once we know the adjoining property and we can research the gate that's existing there, that might be helpful to get everyone involved. That at that point in the area, there are only 2 remaining driveways. Is that right, John? Do you understand?
My understanding, yes.
Yeah. So it would just involve something that would be a collaboration of those 2 individual owners at that point in the flag lot. I know. So my thought is just try to communicate with the neighbor and see if perhaps that hedge can be cut back a little bit, removed, so that you have some area in there. Because once you put in the gate, you're just going to have more of a frustration level, I think.
okay, let me talk to the owner of the landscape. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Have a great day.
You take care. Thank you.
Is there a motion to adjourn now? Thank you. Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Question that's not on the menu. Is that okay? When I went to look at this gate at 629 Hedges, next door on 631, there's a really ugly gate. It's black.
I think that's what he was talking about, that he wants that to be.
That was before we became a
We're going to research that. Yeah.
please. It is really bad. It sets an awful precedent. That's all I have to say.
What's the address?
Township of
631 Hedges. Okay.
It's which one?
631 Hedges.
631.
I just would like to know when it was approved.
I'll find out.
Thank you. Under new business, we have another driveway on Stag Road, north of the highway, directly opposite a historic structure. And so we wanted to address that concern that we have about that. Could we get the next file up?
I don't think that applicant is here.
He
is.
He's in the meeting room,
Oh, it's in the meeting room? Okay.
Not in the meeting room. He's on Zoom.
Okay.
Jeff, could you unmute yourself, please?
Can you hear me?
Hi there. Yes, we need you.
Yeah. Good afternoon. How's everyone?
Good afternoon.
Awesome. So we're proposing a 4-foot high gate at 12 Sag Road. The new construction that my client was before the board previously for. That lot itself is around 2 acres. I'm pretty sure everyone is familiar as it is right on Montauk Highway. This gate is being proposed for additional security. As you can imagine, passerbyers do at times enter into properties that don't belong to them. I actually live in the neighboring hamlet in Bridgehampton, and we've had that happen to our property as well. Considering this is new construction, my client wanted to add another layer of security, meeting all the town code requirements in regards to the structure, its size, and where it's set back. So we wanted to present this to the board in an effort, once again, to offer a little bit more security off of a major highway. And we know that area does get a bit congested.
Okay. Just as a perspective, historically speaking back, as I recall, the house was described to us as a something that might have been a barn modified into a residence when it was brought to us for the site. I did have the clerk pull the pictorials for this from October 20, the submission of it. And if you can pass that one back, and we'll come back down through just to familiarize yourselves with it.
Yeah.
This
since
is,
we've known this from birth.
Right. And this is directly, your driveway is directly opposite a historic structure. The name is escaping me at the moment. I think, was it the Hildreth House? Is that right?
I don't know. Bob Morgan's house.
Yeah,
Was that
it was owned by Bob Morgan, but I can't remember the historical family name. So in concept, a lot of folks move to Sagaponack because it is beautiful, it is open, and the viewscapes and so forth are somewhat attractive, and it has driven lots of different things upward, including price and so forth. But we struggle as a village to try and retain some of that character. And I would prefer that maybe some other mode of notification or awareness that that's private could be conceived rather than a gate right there. It kind of argues in the face of trying to keep the village characteristics floating. We basically have two centers of Sagaponack. We have the general store and post office, and then that other location is where we kind of meet up with Route 27 there. And those are somewhat perhaps sacred locations. And I understand where you're coming from, but I also would like you to discuss with the owners the concept of trying to maintain some sense of openness. You do have a decent hedge and planting scape there, but the gate, I think if you're going to insist on a gate, we're going to try and convince you that it needs to be much more rural in character. What the design there is a little ornate for what we would be looking for in a rural setting. And although it is somewhat see-through, we might suggest that it be a minimal amount of framing and so forth with it. I don't know how the members of the board view it, but that was my initial thought.
I think that was a great explanation.
Okay, so does the Morgan house across the street have a gate?
No,
No.
it does not.
It's
No.
never had a gate.
Neither does Wilford's, the next house to the northeast.
And also I drove in.
There is a gate to the north, but it is set way back off the road. And unfortunately, this particular site does not have the depth of a lot to shield the public viewscape, I might describe it as. So,
So from a design standpoint, you'd like a change that more resembles a rural effect. Ideally, this gate itself at the center is at, I believe, 2 feet, which ideally for my client, the goal was to make it less heavy in nature, which is right. He elected to go with this particular design. I do understand the village would want more of a barn farm style like design that I've seen the board approve. So I can always go back to my client and see if he's amenable to a change in design. The only difference between some of the other properties that you pointed out, my client's properties literally hugs Montauk Highway, and the increase in density the last few years, we've noticed a great deal of impact. So he wants to have some type of added layer of security for that to provide him some peace of mind. So if the board's okay with us returning with maybe a change in design that's more consistent with what's been approved, that we could definitely return with an amended version or amended plan for the board to review again or consider.
I believe if I could speak up, it's like Martin, that I think the need for the gate, I understand the density. I actually live on Montauk Highway myself. I just wonder if there's another way, either the change of the driveway design or with signs or other methodology right in the historic section. And I just believe this is not a great application for a gate in the hamlet.
Is there any law on that part of Sagaponic Hill? Is there any kind of?
Further north,
That gate on the screen is
that gate
the
is
house next door.
next door, but it is severely further back off the road.
Like you explained, we just don't have the depth to push it further back. This would help obviously mask it a bit better, but we just don't have the depth there.
At this point in time, if you were to put it in, are there any plantings back to the gate posts? I don't believe there would be. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
There are no plantings that seal off any of the grassed area on either side of the
Correct.
way. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Freestanding
At the
gate.
moment, there aren't any plantings.
Okay.
I think you could see our concern though, that it's a, the neighboring property must have been through a different period in the town AHRB's history, and it's just the opposite of what we're after in terms of trying to get the open farm-like vernacular, both in design and in the application itself.
No, that's completely understand. Our approach is, or our argument is simply concerning the location where it's situated. It requires a little bit more protection than most lots in this hamlet, in this village. Hence the reason why we placed the application for the driveway gate. I don't think we necessarily compare to even the lot to the north, because once again, they don't have to deal with the concerns of the road noise and just passerbyers that may or may not enter onto the property. But I understand the board's approach and view, but we'd still like to have some type of 4-foot gate that meets code. And if there is another option that the board would be open to recommend, we'd be more than happy to hear it and consider it.
Very good. But to clarify, the center of what you're proposing is only 2 feet high? Is that what you mentioned?
Correct.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that. I think at this stage, if you can devise something that's a bit more rural in character, and I think the village has some similar drawings or references for that. With a rural gate, it's basically might be like a pasture gate or something like that. That would be something that.
What is a pasture gate? Is that just the one arm thing?
No, it's usually got one cross member across it, and it's one diagonal kind of a thing. Yeah.
Well, on behalf of my client, he is amenable to that. So what I like to do is present that. I believe I need to resubmit a plan to that effect, if I'm correct.
Correct. Yes.
Yes, and also looks like there may be additional feet. It says 40 here, but you know, the further back, the better.
Correct. The minimum at 40. We'll investigate and see if there's an additional 5 to 10 feet, if more, which I know the board would be even pleased to see. If we could push it further back, then we'll do our best to do so. But we'll return and submit new style that meets that rural view or look that the board's looking for. And then hopefully the board could review it and provide any additional comments.
Very good. All right. Thank you very much, Jeff.
I won't leave you yet because I believe the next one's also with me.
Okay. Very good.
We have to adjourn that one.
Yes. Yeah. Is there a motion to adjourn this application for 12 Sag Road? Angry, second? All those in favor? Aye. Very good. Thank you. And the third gate that we were looking at today.
We'll just take off the learn.
Yeah.
And see.
Sorry.
Is 219 Sag Main Street. And we're just getting that up now. So, yeah, I'm gonna keep that one for now. The village code on this gets kind of interesting because in an effort to maintain the character south of the highway, there were additional provisions granted by the village board through measures that echo and support the historic nature down through to the historic district south of the highway along South Main Street.
Right.
So, on those thoughts, it's up to the discretion of the ARB as far as placement to support the open visual aspect from the public access along the street. And what this comes down to basically is with your particular setting on this location, the board has an allowance to request that the gate might be placed up out of view from the street. And that was my initial thought. I think we have a picture of the street, which I took this morning. It is raining here, but the curvature of the driveway and so forth allow a fair amount of, and perhaps lack of landscaping near the street, allow for a fairly long visual sightline from the public viewpoint. And so I'm just going to open the thought process there for the board. And then we can talk about simplicity of design, which is also quoted in the code, and a few other points on that. So is this particular submission something that echoes any particular design on the house or anything like that, or is it just a general vernacular?
The homeowner is here and it was her choice of design. I'll let her chime in. Kristen, are you?
I am. Hi. Kristen Kyle, nice to meet you.
You just speak up, please.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, the Microphones are very,
Sure, Kristen Farrell, nice to meet you. Yes, this is an original Todd Nagy home built in 2009 by Michael Davis, and it has a very traditional look to it. So I think in keeping with that, since this is the moment where you approach the property and see the entry and get the feeling for the property, that is why we moved in this direction. So, sitting here this morning and hearing you speak, I understand, your charge, if you will, in maintaining this special area that you oversee and what the goal is here. I think a little bit different, a few things on this property. There is a PSE&G easement on the left-hand side, and we do have a utility pole there. So in keeping, and Jeff was very helpful, just kind of walking me through some of the considerations, again, hearing more from you today. So the placement of the gate was, I believe, to your code, and then we maybe have a little bit of leeway to maneuver around that telephone pole, but that's kind of one of the location restrictions. Secondly, this driveway currently is all asphalt and it looks like a road. So we have seen traffic come down a limited time since I've owned the home. And we also have a former homeowner here, this house went into foreclosure, who was in litigation for 12 years. They're not very rational. I've heard a lot of stories, a lot of local stories. So we were concerned about the security aspect, but certainly I think the aesthetic, is the main concern that I'm hearing from you, and how does that integrate, into the cybercrime community?
And I'd also like to add, if you don't mind, Kristen, that just from that image that you took from the road, I don't know if you actually walked onto the property, I staked out, put some red flags just so you could kind of get a visual of where it might be placed on the driveway. It's virtually inconspicuous. There's dense woods next on the south side, and it's also some dense landscaping on the north side as well to help mask its visibility. The design aspects of the gate itself, concerned that they meet code, being a 4-foot gate, also reduces its impact. And as Kristen has already stated, primary focus here is additional security for the property. We do have some space for roundabout as well to back out and back in. So the placement was chosen with these different aspects in place, and we would hope that that's also considered in your review.
The turnaround would be this broadened area underneath the north reading.
Correct.
Is it possible to zoom in a little bit further on that?
We supplied some photos of the drive.
The latest one is what got submitted, what got scanned. What I'm passing down to the board actually shows this one that has the location of the
The location of the what?
gate.
Okay.
Survey on the board does not have the location of the gate, and that was the most recent one submitted.
Okay, so the
survey on the screen does list the gates situated 50 feet from the property line, which is even further away from the road, as the code reads that the gate needs to be a minimum of 40 feet from the pavement.
And the pole that you're referring to is part of, that's the post with the 2 hooks on it?
It's a full utility pole.
So the gate is basically there.
Yeah.
Okay, does that prevent the utility
No, it
company
would
from
go
reaching the
right
pole?
behind the utility pole, but I think it would just, that was going to kind of consume a little bit and allow that access. Yeah, as Jeff said, the landscaping is quite dense on the left and the right in that area in particular. So I think just from the visual perspective, you would almost have to stop and turn in to have the line of sight to the gate from this particular area of side Main, where it is quite dense there. There's some very mature landscaping on the north side and the south side. And I think you're just catching that utility pole there on the left. You can see that in the photo.
Can we go in one more time?
It's kind of bright as the driveway does come up and crest a little bit
Right,
there
to the
and then
left,
turns
right.
to the left, yeah.
Mhm.
So we would want to be on the straight portion, for sure, to allow, easy access. And then just beyond there is where that turnaround is.
Right. Does it make sense to put the gate past the turnaround so that people can turn around if they get up there and they find out that that's not where they're supposed to be?
It's not a full, it's kind of it's a pass. So I think we would want to be careful that if a car was entering and a car was exiting, that the pass would not be restricted by the gate opening or closing. We did walk it and feel that exactly where we proposed it provided the most egress and availability for passing. So we did look at that. I'm happy to look at it again, but I think we found a location that seems to meet all of the needs.
Any comments from the board?
Yeah, so it looks like from the survey, there's 250 feet. Can we go back to the survey? So that's 250 feet, and then there's another 419 feet in the next leg. And it just seems that, given our last conversation regarding gates, that I would hope the proposal would be closer to, say, 100 feet, 150 feet. It wouldn't really be seen, as Tom's saying, allow a mistaken driver to turn around, and just it's such a long driveway. And there's so much room, and again, our idea is that the properties are not all closed with gates, and we live in a gated community. So I wonder if you could consider saying double or tripling that distance.
I think we can certainly look at that. As you're saying, there's a great deal of distance from there to the house. I just want to look at the curvature in the existing driveway because I wasn't planning on going to that expense. And the gate was on the original plan, which, as I understand, predates your formation back in 2009. So all the conduit has been run. So that's all pre-existing.
What is the actual, we just didn't approve a flag lot gate that's much longer than even this one. What is the issue? that you need to
I'm not familiar with that property, so I can't speak to the specifics of that. I think two things. I think this is not an open vista, or a few things, not an open vista area here. It is a lot of dense, mature landscaping. I think this particular, if you take a drive past it today, it really feels like a road. So we do get a tremendous, we get some traffic down the road, and there's a construction site next door as well, which is often mistaken. So, and then you don't really have an opportunity for a full turnaround until you're all the way up at the house. This is really in case someone's coming in and someone's leaving, that you have the opportunity to go over it. And then I do believe the security issue is real. The security issue in what way? Just there's a former homeowner who's a very litigious and has been back to the property. He had hidden cameras on the property. He ran a school here on this property during COVID. The litigation, although it was cleared enough to transfer ownership of the house, there's still a few things left as part of that file and that history in Suffolk County Court. So I've installed cameras at the house now just in the last few days, but I think it's a real consideration.
Well, I think we should design the gate if it's really, really necessary, where it looks best, regardless of the litigious person
he's not gonna live forever, but the gate may. And so we should put it where it's gonna look good now. That's how I feel. If it's really necessary, we've had 3 gates, that's our only meeting today, has been 3 gates, and it just upsets me that everyone in Sagaponic has to have a gate. I mean, what are we? We've got the criminal element cruising around at night? I just don't understand it. I don't. So it's
No, I completely understand your concern as well. And our application for the driveway gate isn't necessarily to start a firestorm of other gates. We have true and real concerns on the property. And we've made an application in an effort to address those concerns. And I'm sure Kristen is amenable to some of your requests for changes. But we'd like to have to some effect so that added layer of security as well on this property. Considering while I was even flagging the property yesterday, someone pulled down the driveway. So even for me, my time at the property is limited, and I've experienced that as well. So that's the primary reason for, well, one of the reasons for our application for the driveway gate.
Might it be possible to actually have a sign that says private residence with the name of the owner, or simply private residence, or something to thwart people from considering it's a road, or it's just.
Or give it rocks.
I just wonder if you could consider what it would be like if every meeting we had 3 applications for gates, what the community would look like. If you look at the police logs over the last, say, 5-10 years, it's an extremely rare occasion that there's ever anything that happens in Sagaponic. So it's just hard for us, other than you know, the obvious nuisance of someone mistaking the driveway to something else, to approve these applications, unless there's a real issue, a real contingency that isn't a temporary one.
I agree. And I think even proposing to push the driveway back more is putting us back into another situation where it's, even though it's not a flag lot, it's a driveway and it is long. And if it is, somebody goes there and it's the wrong address, how are they going to turn around? And then you're just constantly having these cars that are backing up onto Sag Main Street. I don't know.
So there's a couple ideas. One would be to simply put up a sign that says private residence. There's
Right.
an option to perhaps do just to visit some alternative surface that would suggest that it's a private driveway rather than a paved road. And then the discussion of design and placement, which we're going to ask for some flexibility with that and some investigative consideration. My suggestion might be to, Jeff, if you can come up with a design that fits a little bit more within a rural character. I think, to me, to state that this echoes the house, this far away from the house, might be better to angle your thoughts on something a little bit more traditional, perhaps. And then I'm going to suggest that all the board go and take a look at this just as an exercise. It might be quite
No, I've driven up.
eye-opening.
I have
so that
I was
you-
there yesterday, so that was probably me driving up there. That was me.
Fair enough. And my only comment I would say regarding the signs, it's not a practice I think we want to be involved in. It takes away a bit of the visual appeal from the road, and we'd have to seek and see this sign, how far back we'd have to put this sign, if we can put it further forward or whatnot. We rather not have to put up a sign, but I understand that might also add to the security on the property. In an effort to also avoid an adjournment, I believe, Kristen, you do have some design changes or options, alternates that you wanted to present to the board as well.
I'm sure, I think, I'm sorry, you don't have name tags, so I don't know how to, which I'm in the middle. You had mentioned the pasture type of gate.
Say it again.
I know exactly what you're speaking to. I wasn't sure that it really fit this location or a house, because it's certainly a much more simple design.
Right. For a while under a different chairmanship, that was the only thing that got approved. For about 6
That's
years.
why I just, it's okay. You know, I think there's certain designs that look good at the 4 feet, you know, height versus others, but is there anything else that comes to mind just in terms of style then that you want to comment on?
Invisible.
Probably something that's going to weather and age so that it's not something that stands out as a upfront barrier type of sense.
Okay.
Something that complements your landscaping as opposed to commenting about rigid security type of sense.
Okay, so something more open and perhaps softer in color, either a whitewash or natural.
Yeah, usually like cedar or something like that, that's gonna kind of pale out and fit in, even in the winter. It
Right.
blends with your trees and your.
Okay. Yeah, and as far as changing the driveway material, I was a little hesitant to do that from the street in, perhaps where the driveway turns, just because that's a, you know, when we're thinking about plowing in the wintertime, that's an awful lot of stone to replace every spring and then, you know, coming out into the street. So I've never said this in my life. I don't mind adjourning this to next month. I'm before you again next month anyway with what we're doing with those accessory structures.
Okay.
So I'd rather take the time today. Jeff, thank you for that opening. But I'd rather take the time over the next, you know, few weeks to come up with something that I think will at least give you a viable option to consider.
Very good.
Okay.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank
The
you.
signs that are there now.
They're coming down. You know, when trades put up signs when you're not there, when you're doing work, and I'm not gonna allow any of that.
Right, so is there a permanent address sign? Has there ever been?
There's never been, and we had some rotted falling columns that we removed. It's a temporary sign on the right. I did order a sign.
That might help the address. People are coming in thinking it's the wrong address. You know,
Is the red marker there, Jeff? Is that your locator
I
post?
think that's a property.
Or that a line, property line?
There's one adjacent to the electrical pole Kristen had mentioned earlier. The electrical pole will give you some perspective on what you'd be viewing from the street, and it's the property itself is a little bit elevated from the roadside, which we thought was also another benefit to masking and disguising the gate itself.
Zoom in like 3 times towards the pole. Maybe we can see that perspective.
I didn't even notice it when I was driving up there.
I think so, because I don't, that's a property stake.
that's right here.
Oh, there. we go.
Okay, yeah. Can we
No.
zoom in further to that?
That looks like a marker for electrical.
Yeah, that might be that little
But I
box.
think it's what the utility.
Yeah, that little red marker to the right.
Is that-
Is
There
there?
you go.
Jeff, did you place more than one? There's also one closer to the street.
No, that I think is just a stake, a property line stake.
Am I one closer to Jeff's this time? I just pressed the phone.
Are you able to zoom in even further?
I just don't want to see a gate. It's gotta be.
Yeah, I
It just seems like such a long
It,
line.
well, you just didn't approve a gate, you can see it all from the street. I'm like, How about we're
Flag
putting
28, so-
I think you do.
an address sign up there? It's
Oh,
probably
so
a
there's-
sign up there, just
I'm being told that you just have.
On the right, on the opposite side of the utility pole.
Okay.
It's just so long.
Yeah.
Honestly, no one's gonna try that.
No, they're not. Get that. Scary.
Yeah.
Pass that to the rest.
Okay.
where it is, which is pretty much,
Mhm.
see it right there.
Okay. Yeah, this is, that little red marker next to the little short flag,
Yes.
that's the indicator of where the gate would be located
Um,
pursuant at the moment.
yes.
Thank you. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to adjourn this? Okay, Nick, and second, Keith Ingrid, is that right? Okay. Very good. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
When you talk about gates, I'm getting hysterical here.
Uh-oh.
I am, I mean, they're everywhere. Just saying, when I was looking for this one, 629. Next door to this is a black grid gate, with black and it's ridiculous, all this.
Angry.
Unless they're invisible.
Well, I think each, irregardless of how we feel, each application needs to be heard, and we're going through that process.
Well, we
The
should-
discussion of a complete ban has been brought up before,
And
and it fell short of, it's not up to us to ban it, it would be up to the village board to take that position. And there is not a feeling that we have enough.
Maybe we should discuss this once we adjourn the meeting.
Yeah. Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Committee of two for next month?
Because it's last month.
You will? Okay. All right. So Ingrid, you can keep me up at night. Okay,
So it'll be you and Ingrid.
correct. And with no other practical things from the agenda, can we adjourn? And then the recording. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
I mean, honestly, unless the person is famous.
Let's close it.